2026 elections, trying to do some counter moves as well. So even Politico said Trump's redistricting gambit is poison for blue state Republicans. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out also. And Senator Marsha Blackburn will run for the governor of Tennessee, and her running apparently going to for the Tennessee governor. So she's called out sanctuary policies. Every town is a border town. Is one of the other things that she said. And like I said, she's going to be joining the fight for the governorship of Tennessee. And Republicans are full steam ahead on redistricting, and not just in Texas. So J.D. Vance visits Indiana to discuss redistricting amid Trump pressure on GOP states. So Trump, as I said yesterday, says Vance is favored to become the heir apparent to those that are in the MAGA movement and all along those lines. And Border Patrol agents jump out of a rental truck, and while they did that, they ambushed some folks that were there as well, and that was at an LA Home Depot. So federal agents using a Penske rental truck as a Trojan horse to raid a Los Angeles Home Depot. So Penske rebukes DHS after agents pop out of the truck during that particular immigration raid and everything like that. And India has 20 days to avoid the 50% levies. And Apple just got a big win in the Trump tariff wars. It may have bigger concerns, though, as well. But we'll see what goes on as the tariffs continue to be a major news story. And icy cool, how Claudia Sheinbaum is navigating Trump's new world. So it looks like Mexico may got a tariff reprieve, but Canada didn't. Trump tariffs are unstable, says the Mexican auto sector chief. So it definitely looks like Trump has announced an agreement to pause higher tariffs on Mexico for 90 days, which is roughly around 3 months. So we'll see how this plays out as well. And Trump calls for the U.S. Census to exclude for the first time people with no legal status. So Trump says he's ordering a new census as well. So Trump calls for a new census to exclude undocumented immigrants. So I guess we're getting ready to go into this whole census battle as well. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that place. And Trump threatens to deploy the National Guard in D.C. and take over the police department. So police seek person of interest in D.C. carjacking assault as Trump threatens federal control. So apparently he's saying that it might be time for the feds to move into D.C. and monitor what goes on there. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that and all along those lines. And apparently IndyCar is perplexed by ICE Speedway imagery. So a new immigrant detention partnership nicknamed after Indiana's iconic racetrack has an inspired backlash. So Speedway slammer immigration jail said to be Trump's new alligator Alcatraz. IndyCar says it was unaware of DHS's use of AI-generated images featuring ICE branding. So it looks like they might be getting in trouble with Indy by trying to create a detention center and seeing that it is somehow connected to the Indy 500, that iconic race, when apparently it has no connection to them whatsoever. So that'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. I know I've got John with me. It looks like I've got Nick with me. I'll see if anybody else joins us in this conversation. But how are you doing over there in Canada? And we'll see what Nick's doing there in Spain if he gets on camera and everything. So how are you doing?
Doing fantastic as usual.
Good.
Thanks. I'm not going for my walk today right now. I'll go a bit later. Things are fantastic in Canada.
No rain?
No rain. Hasn't rained for a few days, but we water the lawn and the plants, so no worries. Rain will come.
That's cool. Yeah, we had a little bit of rain here in North Carolina, I think, for a second or third day, and there's a little bit of it even today, but I think it's supposed to taper off. But we've been having milder temperatures than usual for August. I think they've been like around the 70s and the 80s during the day, and even some 60s in the evening time. But those lovely 90s are going to come back in the middle to end of next week. So not looking forward to that, but it is about to.
Mark, earlier you mentioned the story about redemption and stuff. So,
Right.
I read a book about, I'm going to say about 7-8 years ago. I highly recommend Rising Out of Hatred.
Right.
It's tells the story of Derek Black. I won't go into details, but he was a white supremacist that was kind of going to be the leader of that group. Kind of groomed, not groomed, but helped by his father. And he realized once he went into a liberal college that maybe his worldview wasn't the best.
Yeah, he changed his views from those disturbing views that he had and everything along those lines. Hey, Rick, it looks like the fine folks in the race car world are upset because apparently ICE decided to use some of their branding in order to do a ICE raid, and apparently Penske's not too happy either because they used a truck and everything. So what's your take when these giant corporations, whether it's a sports corporation or I think Penske is a trucking company and everything, are get upset because
so what they did up an ICE truck so it looked like it had signage from these Penske, companies? Well, that's incompetent bullshit. Yeah, I would be infuriated if I mean, most companies try to remain politically neutral. And if you're going to throw your logo into the middle of the most politically charged issue in America right now, then yeah, I'd be infuriated.
And apparently that was what happened with Indy, because apparently IndyCar said it was unaware of DHS's use of AI-generated images featuring ICE branding. So they didn't even just use their own branding, like the regular branding. They used it through AI.
ICE is run by incompetent people. Kristi Noem is, like, in addition to being a loathsome person, she's a freaking idiot. This is a woman who, as governor of South Dakota, was not even allowed to go into more than 10% of her state because she'd been so obnoxious to Native Americans that they barred her from 8 Native American reservations or Native American lands. She has a long history of being an idiot and an asshole to boot. So yeah, and I don't think she's a lawyer. I think she's one of those people who barely graduated college, like in her 30s, because it was politically expedient to have a degree. But
so she's a MAGA idiot, is what you're telling us.
Yeah,
sounds like that's what you're saying and everything. And it looks like there was some major news coming out of the world of good news where people are being rescued, because apparently 3 people from a U.S. base in Antarctica were evacuated in a high-risk rescue operation, and the New Zealand Air Force mounted the dangerous rescue mission in Antarctica. So it looks like we got some help from the fine folks in New Zealand as rescuers braved extreme cold, challenging conditions in a marathon 20-hour Antarctic evacuation because there was some sort of medical emergency over there as well. So
it's winter in the southern hemisphere. It's the middle of winter right now, so Antarctica is probably 50 degrees below zero.
Oh well. Yeah, I don't even know why you would want to work in those kind of environments. But hey, matter of fact, I was watching one of our local news reporters, and I think somebody might have been the weather person, just moved here from Buffalo. So the other reporters were saying, please don't bring that Buffalo weather here to North Carolina. So
also, Antarctica much of it would be dark 24 hours a day. So this rescue took place in pitch black.
Yeah, in pitch black and everything like that. Apparently, Congress doesn't want to talk to Alex Acosta, Epstein's sweetheart deal maker, and everything like that. So Trump tells reporters to look at Clinton and former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers when he was asked about Epstein, but I guess they don't want to talk to this.
All right, so I was thinking about this. All these guys, Epstein, super rich, Trump, pretty rich, Bill Clinton, you want to throw him in too. All they had to do was not rape underage girls, and they could have had great lives. Now Epstein's dead, Clinton's, he's an old man at this, and Trump is in the worst political trouble. All these guys had to do was not molest. If they'd stuck to women, over 18, it would have been creepy, but it would have been legal. But no, they had to get in there and creep on 16, 15-year-olds. it's not only is it rape, not only is it creepy, but it's like super stupid. Why should we trust the judgment of frickin' Trump?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great question. So, Maxwell was met with Blanche, who Blanche was Trump's personal lawyer. He met with her by himself. She got moved to a minimum security. Why? She's a convicted felon of dangerous woman.
Yeah,
Many questions that a reasonable person could ask is like, what the hell's happening with these guys?
Dangerousness aside, that particular country club like prison is not for sex offenders. They broke some kind of rules to even put her in there.
Right.
Yeah, they broke some new rules and everything like that. So, by the way, today is a milestone day because some 60 years ago, the Voting Rights Act protection for minority voters was enacted, but now there seems to be a lot of threats against that now as well. So will we have voting rights in the next election, or will some of these voting rights continue to be eroded?
Before we get to that, I think that's an important point, but just one last point. I'm looking forward to the MAGA trying to defend what's been happening with Maxwell and her being moved and Blanche talking. I'm just gonna wait to see what kind of arguments and twisted logic that they're gonna come up with. It's gonna be a sight to behold. I can't wait.
It will be. Maybe Nick will join us. He was off camera for a minute, and maybe he'll have some ideas along those lines and everything like that. We'll see what his thoughts are. Jacoby, any thoughts around this notion of voting rights being repealed under Trump? There's been an attack on voting rights for decades now and everything. So what's your take on this as we celebrate the 60th anniversary?
Well, with the Maxwell thing, the fact that they're sending her in the middle of a neighborhood and they're not registering her with all the other people around her. I mean, they're going to come up with some conspiracy to defend it. One thing that I've heard is that they are saying, well, if she has some information, well, the woman is a noted liar. She's uncredible. And she knows that the only way to get a pardon is to say nice things about Donald Trump. Everybody knows that. So it's just ridiculous. And it is unprecedented what's going on, because especially the fact that it was the who went down there, the talks that they had, and they haven't talked to any of the victims or anything. So yeah, it's all a show. And
enough of those idiots will probably figure it out. Whatever. Some of them will not be convinced by any of this. But some will buy will continue to drink the Kool-Aid and blah, blah, blah.
And those super loud ones will be the ones that get the videos and the clicks and everything else. So that'll be hard. That's one thing. The voting rights piece, yes, they're going to take away voting rights. It was always part of the plan. That's always been part of Project 2025. Project 2025 is based on the nasty history even before Jim Crow. So Texas is just a prelude to what they're actually doing. From merging taking away they're gerrymandering the districts that are dealing with a lot of the minority individuals. South Carolina is already talking about removing James Clyburn and taking away that black district. Why they're taking it away is because it is a black district. So it's no other. They're using these things to, yes, take away voting rights. Clarence
I just read an article.
I was just going to say, Clarence Thomas is already on record that he wanted to attack even the Voting Rights Act. So voting rights. This is why, again, minorities are not welcome in the U.S. at this moment under this administration.
All right, I just read an analysis of the legality of gerrymandering states. And a few years ago, the Supreme Court washed their hands of regulating gerrymandering, and the only so said states you can do what you want unless there's a racial aspect to cracking voting districts. So when this goes to court, if Texas manages to redistrict, then the argument, the only winning argument, possibly winning, is that these new districts are racist. They're denying voting power to minorities, and because there's a racial alignment in Texas along political lines, that could be a winning argument to deny.
Could be a winning argument in their perspective and everything. Hey, Sasha, several times you talked about Poland being proposed only and all along those lines, and apparently a nationalist candidate, a nationalist woman candidate, has won over there. But they're saying that she is a Trump-backed candidate and a friend of Trump, and all along those lines. So I just wanted your take on this election of Carol Nawrocki and everything like that, because I do know that several times on this show and other shows you talked about Poland having a very nationalistic kind of view, and it looks like that was the case in this particular election as well.
I don't have much comments on that. It's American business, purely American, doesn't affect anybody else except some people in America. What can you do about it? I really don't know.
I was asking your thoughts on the Polish election, not the American voting rights, but the Polish election, and this woman that is a nationalist that won and everything like that. Because I know you in the past you talked
What
about
woman won in Poland? I'm missing something. I know there is a new president, and his name is Karol Nawrocki. So what woman are you talking about?
That's what I'm talking. Oh, Carol's the guy. My fault.
Oh.
Yeah, that was my fault. I was thinking Carol usually being a girl's name, so that was my fault on that one. But what is your take on this nationalist winning and all along those lines?
Well, I think it's pretty sad, and we'll see how it will affect Polish people. And
I'm sorry, you think
it's hard to say. He just won recently, so it hasn't been affect one way or another. But that's a pretty bad development overall.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out and everything.
Actually, Sasha, I do actually have a question for you, since you're in the stock and the economy and stuff. With the tariffs going into place that are supposedly be the threats on, actually, it's a twofold question. Do you think that the tariffs are going to have any effect on the actual Russia-Ukraine war? And how much do you think, how long before Trump caves on the tariffs, or do you believe Trump is going to cave on the tariffs? Basically, around the whole situation that's coming up now with India now being tariffed because of the oil situation, and how much of an effect, because they're supposed to meet now. I think you saw in the news where Trump and Putin are now supposed to meet.
Yeah,
so do you think he's going to cave before they meet or after they meet, or is he going to cave at all? What's going to happen with India? How much do you think the market can take before it caves under the pressure of the tariffs?
Okay, let's take one thing at a time. Let's start with what you said about upcoming meeting with Putin and Trump. This is going to be a disaster for the United States and for Trump personally, because he just doesn't have mental faculty, intelligence, memory, understanding of really what's going on. And Putin will play him like a little yo-yo back and forth. And this is something what U.S. has to avoid at all cost. You can have meeting of three, say, with Zelensky, or you can have Putin, Trump, and Emperor Xi. That's not going to be as painful for the United States as a one-on-one with Putin. That's going to be disaster. How tariffs are affecting everything? Okay, I think that Trump will cave in about 6 months' time. What's happened is that at that time, the effects of tariffs will be felt by the economy, by people. Um, there are only two countries in the world that are against tariffs and actually have a confrontation against the United States as tariffs are concerned. It's China and Canada, two countries in all world. However, I uncovered very interesting things. The European Union, they didn't put any tariffs in response to Trump's 15% tariffs across the board, but they said that they are taking 6 months' time to review the European Union policy, and in 6 months' time, they will make their announcements regarding tariffs against U.S. Products.
So,
So
question for Sasha.
it's going to
Why-
work in 6 months. That's all.
All right. So, Sasha, why are the stock markets up today? Even why isn't the market freaking out?
That's a good question. I'm wondering myself why it's happening. Okay, their earnings, some of them are pretty good, some of them are not so good. But look at AMD. AMD reported day before yesterday they tanked very significantly, and look at today they almost grabbed back everything what they lost yesterday. So it seems to me the market just doesn't want to go down. Maybe they're counting on cut in interest rates in September, so they're trying to take that as almost done deal. But I'm not sure about that. But maybe that's what will happen. Other than that, I think that the market is overvalued overall. I think that correction is imminent. But when, nobody
Hey,
knows.
Sasha, just really quickly along those same lines, how
Well,
much
hold
do
on,
you think
wait.
this
When
deal
the
with
market-
hold on a second, because I was gonna just about the market. How much do you think this deal with Apple, which is a major American company, and he's trying to bring, I guess, manufacturing back with this deal with Apple, is playing on the market being in relatively good shape because he just made this deal with Apple? So is that part of what is going on as well?
Yeah, with Apple, that's definitely playing its part. However, let's be realistic about something. When Apple says about investing $100 billion in American production, does it mean that they make a bank transfer of $100 billion to Trump? No, it means that they have to do the preliminary studies, they have to do a business plan, they have to make a relocation, they have to find workers for this production, which is not so easy. So this is 5, maybe 7 years project. And
Just a
Apple,
plan. Just a
of
plan. Yeah, just a
yeah, it's a plan, okay, but it satisfies Trump a lot. You see, Trump is very transactional, very petty person, and he needs something today and now, not in 10 minutes, right now.
All right,
Okay,
just
$100 billion
one-
or not? Done.
One quick question for Sasha. If the
Yeah.
market corrects, if it drops 12%, will you be buying stuff?
Not right away. I think once it will lose 12%, if that's the case, it has to find its bottom line, it has to find its bottom, it has to stabilize there, it has to get all the weak hands out of the market. And once that process, but you see now with electronic trading and instant information available, that whatever like before 30 years ago it would take 2-3 months, today it could be done in 2-3 days. Let's see if some, especially a lot of people at retail, they're all buying on margin. So it's so easy to deal with people because brokerage houses, they have their order books, they have their balances of account. So they can see exactly at any moment how many people are buying and what they're buying and how much on margin. So what they do is they lower everything. But whenever that happens, remember, it's not just 1, 2, 5 stocks. Everything is crashing. So people who bought stocks on the margins, there's nothing, nowhere to hide. So they're exposed. they have to bring more money. Apparently, I mentioned several times on my investment program, there's a book with the name Market Wizards.
Mhm.
And one of them is William O'Neill. He's a legendary investor, founder of the Investors Business Daily, passed away about a year ago. So he has two golden rules which work 100% of the time. Number one, if you bought a stock and it's lost 7% from the point where you bought it, sell. Sell first, then ask the question. Once you sold, you can analyze the stock and industry and become expert on the stock. But first thing, what you have to do is to sell, because 7% easily becomes 8% and 10% and 12% and so on. And then you're losing just too much money. 7% rule. And number two rule is if you have a margin call, never bring any more money. Just sell whatever you got, sell it. Why? Because later on, when market will stabilize and will start to go higher, you can always buy it back.
Really interesting. I think one of the things that we glossed over in terms of the Apple deal. What? Oh, now, this will be fun. This will be fun. This will be fun. We're doing it in a couple of questions. What part of the year are we in? Are we in the first half of the year or the second half?
Second.
So we're in the second half of the year. What happens in the second half of the year? What are the biggest things?
Holiday shopping.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got Christmas, holiday shopping, and all that other stuff. What also happens in the second half of the year? Because guess who is also probably going to make a deal similar to how Apple did their quote unquote deal? Google. Do you know who announces their phones? They're one of their biggest sellers. When does that happen? That happens now, the second half of the year. Apple releases theirs usually around September, October. When does Google release theirs? Usually around September, October. So when they make their announcements, which the leaks are now coming out about Apple or Google's Pixel 10 phone, which are happening right now, Apple has now been leaking their phone for a couple of months. Their biggest seller, again, Apple is technically the number two. Well, iOS phones are the number two. Android is the number one because it goes across a variety of markets. Yeah. Pixel is actually way down on the market in terms of where they're actually in the whole the scheme of actually phones that are out there, phone makers that are out there. In terms of ecosystems, Apple and Google are probably up there number one and number two. Samsung is dropping off because of what it does.
Samsung,
so again,
Android system, operating system.
Yeah.
So they're in ecosystem, same as Google.
Yeah. So each Google has their whole ecosystem where you have your Nest systems, Google Home, Google, the YouTube stuff is all up under Google. Apple has their full-blown ecosystem that is number one, dominant across the world. Samsung is up there. Samsung actually plays off of Android, so Android gets the boosted numbers based on that. But Samsung has its own ecosystem. Sony has their ecosystem as well.
But Samsung Google is very strong in chips. They have their own chips, which are very good.
Samsung actually bought into Intel's chips, but they have their own chip system. Tensor is now what Google uses as their chip setup. And the Tensor setup just took off up under the new Pixel lineup, which started, if I remember, at the Pixel 7 and then moved from there. So Google has its own ecosystem. So what Apple did, because it would cost Apple a ton of money to move the Apple production from where it is now to the US. So when we're talking about the Apple production moving, that's never going to happen. Apple's never spending roughly about $500 billion to $1 trillion just to move their whole.
But wait a second. It's been calculated that once Apple will move all its production to the United States, each phone will cost starting $3,000 and more.
Exactly. So what this whole thing is, and it is chess, but it's easy to manipulate a greedy egocentric, wannabe authoritarian who's desperate for a deal, it's easy to manipulate him
It's just
and those
talk.
that follow
It's
him.
just Apple is just talking and saying,
Exactly.
that's all
So
it is.
this quote unquote deal isn't really even a deal. Even when they say they're bringing quote unquote production to Kentucky, just like what was it, Famcom or whatever that was supposed to do, Foxconn that was supposed to move in Trump's first administration, this $300 million deal that never came through. Apple will probably do the same because once they release, because all they have to do now is announce the price of the new iPhone that's going to come out, the iPhone, the iPad, and everything else. Announce that, sell it during the Christmas season because the hottest time to buy it comes off of that trade and that sale. Then what will happen? I bet you what's going to happen is this deal, this tariff and this move won't happen.
We won't hear about it. It'll never happen.
Yeah. So again, Google is going to do the same thing because they're about to announce the Pixel 10. They're about to have the Google I/O event, which will happen in the beginning of September going into August, or I'm sorry, September going into October, and then they release the phone that month. So it's just easy to manipulate this guy, and that's what we got in the office right now.
So, but we do need to. You bring up a point with holiday shopping. We don't even know the tariff on goods manufactured at the North Pole. We don't know if Trump has a deal with Santa.
That's coming.
Remember, Mattel has already announced that they're raising prices. They're also Procter & Gamble. Everybody thinks Procter & Gamble only deals with toilet paper or something like that. No, they deal with a lot of household goods. So you have all these other entities that have already raised prices. Christmas is going to be a lot more expensive this year because prices are just steadily going to go up.
Yeah, because I mentioned
I have a
couple of days ago about the toy conference, and the toy conference said just what you said. Prices are already going up, but they will go
up. One thing on what Sasha said. So obviously, Sasha, you've been investing a long time. I don't have the ability. It sounds like you might. I'm not convinced, but I'll take you at your word. To time the market, I don't think anybody can time it. And if you do have that ability, great skill to have. I'm not convinced anybody can do that. I know that when Trump made his announcements early back when April and the stock market caved, I didn't do anything. I didn't sell anything. When the market was kind of I'm trying to remember the day. I think it was on a Friday where it really tanked. This is probably a month after April 2nd or something. And I remember it going crazy. I think it might have hit 18. The spot was 18%, almost 20%. And I thought, you know what? I had some cash. I bought a whole bunch of S&P 500, and I sold that piece a couple weeks ago. So but for my I'm widely diversified. I'm not going to do anything. I just don't have that ability. Nobody does. Maybe you do, Sasha, and I say good luck if you sold. I know a number of people. The problem with selling, you have to then know when to buy, and I don't have that ability. And I bow to you if you do. Fantastic. This has been my kind of approach for 34 years and 30, 40 years, and just stay, diversified in my portfolio. Don't touch it. Don't try to time it. And I can't complain.
Thank you.
It's interesting watching Sasha and Milan go back and forth on Sasha is more of a market wizard and does more of a lot of analysis and seems to have a lot of victory like he did with NVIDIA. And so if I don't want to speak for the man when he's not in the room, but my understanding from watching the show and producing the show is that Milan is very much into the S&P 500 and believes in investing in that stock, which is the American stock, more than anything else. Is that a correct assessment?
It's a correct assessment. You see, my philosophy investing in S&P 500, you're buying overall a bunch of stocks. Some of them are quite inferior in quality. Although Milan always tells me, well, look, NVIDIA also part of S&P 500. I said, of course. So why, instead of just buying NVIDIA, you're also buying 499 stocks, which are clearly inferior to NVIDIA. So essentially, all profits that you could generate by owning just NVIDIA alone, you are eliminating all your profits by holding 499 stocks. A lot of them, or maybe most of them, are clearly inferior to NVIDIA.
Yeah.
So this is very difficult to deal with because
Yeah. So, but at the same time, you don't have all of your portfolio in one stock, right?
no,
Well,
I'm just,
again, it's like, it's a conversation that I find interesting, but it doesn't impact me or my objective. I'm 67 years old now. I'm more focused on, my finances are based on keeping capital rather than investing or making home runs. Just preservation of what I've saved. That's it.
yeah, in my programs, I always mention that preservation of capital is very, very important point of any portfolio and so on. In fact, everything what I'm doing with NVIDIA and other stocks, this is part of my so-called fund portfolio, because in my core portfolio, I do have high yield dividend stocks, which I don't trade. And I haven't done any trades for the last probably 5 years at all. So that alone, and that's with dividends and with capital appreciations, generates very good profits, but not nearly as good as my fund portfolio. That's a completely different situation.
Have fun, for sure.
Yeah. Yes, I do. 520% return in slightly over 2 years. Yes, it is a lot of fun.
Keep doing what you're doing. Absolutely.
Definitely catch that show. What were you saying, John?
No, all I said is keep doing what you're doing, Sachin.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
Show every Wednesday at 1:00 here on Pod TV and everything along those lines. Like I said, conversation between them and Milan, who is a retired, sometimes been about their different approaches, and I may join in with a and everything like that. But it is a good show to catch here on Pod TV every.
But by the way, what's interesting is in that show, I don't make any recommendations to anybody. All what I'm doing is I show people what holdings I have in my fund portfolio and what my strategy is. But again, this is suggestion, is not recommendation. Because I don't think that I'm even qualified to provide any recommendations. And also, if you provide recommendations, you're like on a line, and if something you recommend is not doing well, then people will accuse you, I follow your recommendations, and now I lost money, and so on and on. As a positions in the portfolio, in my fund portfolio, I'm emphasizing that I have shares of AMD, I have shares of NVIDIA. NVIDIA is far largest part of my fund portfolio. I have also stock NVDY. It's NVIDIA, which is strategy selling covered calls, and they're paying dividends every 4 weeks. And that works very well. Then I have United Health, which tanked recently, and it will take probably another uh, some time to recover. But what I didn't buy shares of United Health. I sold two puts with expiration date January 16th of next year. I sold 300 puts, so all I need, because I collected $44 for each put, all I need is to break even. United Health to be $56, 256 a share. I think it's quite possible because the stock was recently $600. So it went down big time, and it had two misses on its quarterly reports and some legal problems and so on. Okay, well, it's I believe that it's temporary. However, it will take some time. I think about 3 to 4 months to recover. Not if not fully recover, but at least somewhat recover. Okay.
So we're going to do Naked at Night this Sunday unless I'm still testing positive for COVID, and then we'll see, what people want to do.
Well, talking about, and you brought it up a couple of times, really quickly, Rick, and everything is population decline and all along those lines. And it seems like there has been a major
your voice is
not necessarily China, but Japan, and they're saying that for women, economic costs are not the only turnoff. But of course, Japan is a highly patriarchal society in which married women are expected to give a role, despite government efforts to get husbands more involved and everything like that. So they're saying that these issues are plaguing other East Asian nations with their own population woes, including China and South Korea. So how much should we be worried about?
Well, the entire developed world, by 2050, the only continent that will have population growth will be, well, not counting Antarctica, will be Africa. All Europe, Asia, the U.S., South America, all will have population declines. People are, there are a number of factors, but people are deciding that it's not worth it to put in the effort to raise kids.
One of the things that the article said was how their
your voice
children, part of that is with limited space and the stagnant economy and wages around the world.
Yeah, so boomers in the U.S., people 45 and older have 94% of the of private assets, leaving 6% for anybody under 45. And so if you're in a 550 square foot studio apartment with your significant other, it's tough to raise a kid there.
Yeah, very tough to raise a kid there. But yeah, it looks like in Japan there's no sign of it slowing this economic, this decline in population, and I'm sure that's the case in the rest of the world as well.
The U.S. is only making 80% as many kids as they need to keep the population stable. In Japan, it's even less. It's like 60%. In some Western countries, it's under half as many babies as are needed to keep the population stable.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everything. Getting off of that and everything, we got about 9 minutes. Hey, Sasha, one of the questions I was going to ask you about one of your other topics in one of your other shows, because it is the Ukrainian show that you do every Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, every Tuesday. It's twice a week, Tuesday and Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning. And why it's twice a week is because it's a situation very dynamic, and it's changing almost daily. So I figured out that while at least the war is on, we should cover it as more often than others.
I do have a question about this whole Pod TV. Do you guys get paid, Mark? Do you get paid, Sasha and Walker, when he comes? Are they paid guests? Like, they spend an hour or so, Sasha, you have 2 shows, I guess, a week. Do you guys get paid? How does that work? Because I wouldn't want to do what you're doing unless I'm paid. Like, you know.
Well, make an application, ask how much you want to get paid, and
No. No, I'm asking it, Mark, Sasha, Mr. Walker, David Walker, and other guests. Do that, me, Joe, Jatovi, we're just, like, I don't know about Rick. Maybe Rick has a show. Do you guys get paid? Like, I'm just.
No.
Okay.
At some point, we hope so. Some point in the future, we hope Pod TV becomes so successful
Okay.
that there's ad revenue, and then that we get to share in some of the profits. But
Okay, got it. So this is a kind of a startup kind of a concept.
yeah,
It's totally a startup company because Nick and Kim met each other at a like a hackathon, from my understanding, and then became friends. This is a matter of fact, if you look on Kim's Instagram, I believe it was, this is the 9th year that Pod TV has been around, or at least that they have a form of Pod TV, but the Pod TV itself is probably about 4 years old.
Yeah, I understand, because Nick founded it, so I can see him, maybe profiting, but like you guys, like Mark, you do this every day. Rick,
it costs me money to make Naked at Night because I have to pay for broadband, not broadband, but a high bandwidth feed. I have to pay some talent, So yeah, it's not exactly a labor of love, but it's not making me money.
Yeah, I was just curious, like, especially Mark, like you're on these things daily. I would hope that you would get paid, but if you're, it's some sort of startup.
It's a risky thing to. Hosts are kind enough to put some money.
You're
glitching. The amount of time that I'm putting into it, and all along those lines, and if they even.
Yeah, you're glitching. I didn't understand anything. I'd recommend spending a bit more money on bandwidth here, because I noticed since I've been going on these things, there's a lot of glitching. Sometimes.
All right. Here's a story. James Cameron, who directed Terminator more than 40 years ago, says that the prediction of Terminator could come true. He says that AI, in combination with control of nuclear weapon systems, could do stuff similar to what happened in Terminator, which is trigger a global nuclear war. And so this is a guy who's been thinking about this for 40 years. And he's working on a new movie called Ghosts of Hiroshima, which I assume is about the bomb that was dropped, one of the 2 nuclear bombs used in war.
And there's been some concern about that. Like I mentioned earlier, some of the survivors are worried that we might be heading closer to nuclear war than away from nuclear war, and everything along those lines. So that was some of the survivors of that other anniversary.
I think that AI is destabilizing with regard to nukes, because AI thinks 10,000 times faster than we do. And if you put AI in any kind of position to make decisions or advise on what to do, it can quickly jump to dangerous conclusions.
Yeah, they can definitely jump to dangerous conclusions and everything like that. Hey, we only got another 4 minutes. The question I was going to ask you, Sasha, is your thoughts around this reports that are coming from the Western media about the declining popularity of Zelensky, because that is something that I keep hearing people talk about and everything in our Western media, but everything I see, it seems like he's still very popular in Ukraine. But if you listen to Reuters and you listen to some of the other people, they make it seem like he is losing popularity in that country. So I was just wondering your take on it.
Well, you have to be, first of all, even if it's true, understand that the Western media is full of useful idiots supported by Russians and who are carrying Russian propaganda points. So this is must. Even if Zelensky is not getting so popular as before, which is possible. There are certain faults of Zelensky, especially with his number one man, the Mr. Yermak, who is the head of his administration. There are a lot of unpleasant postures that a lot of Western governments really hate him and wanted to Zelensky to fire him. And since he doesn't do that, and now they would be satisfied that what's the mechanism for that? You have to have election.
Corruption, which is in his case mostly bullshit, because Zelensky entered office as a very rich man, a TV star and a movie star worth hundreds of millions of bucks. He cannot be bought.
Did we ever talk, speaking of things that we should worry about, especially with this administration, did we talk about what's going on with Bukele, term limits on the elections?
No.
Yeah, because that happened yesterday as well. Well, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. But yeah, they decided with Bukele. So that means they are taking away, El Salvador's taking away term limits from their elections. So Bukele can stay in as long as he wants to, similar to like Putin. And how we go, Putin, all the other areas with authoritarian and dictatorial governments and stuff. And that is, again, another precursor to what they're trying to do in the U.S. with the redistricting of maps. They've been floating the idea, well, of course, the administration talking about running a quote-unquote third term. And this is how we get there, is we take away the term limits. So therefore, he can stay thing that begins to hint around, because they just sided with him, happening then.
Yeah, and I did mention that not today, but definitely on either Tuesday or like that.
Built into the Constitution, the 25th Amendment, which means that's tougher to overturn than a lot of legislation.
Yeah, because you got to have like the whole way that we do constitutional amendments. You got to have 2/3 of the states and have it.
I think it might even be 3/4 of the states, which is 38 states. And also, you can't fight nature. Like Trump will be 82 at the end of this, and he's in kind of crappy sufficiency. His ankles swell because his legs can't return sufficient blood to his body, which is at the very least an indicator that he's an old ass man.
Yeah. We can talk about that and some more at the 5 o'clock show shortly and everything. I know at the noon hour we'll have Barbara Smith and her Empowering You show along with Shauna Smith. No relation to her and all along those lines, but Shauna is also the person behind Kendu Spices, which is an all natural spice that she herself created in probably a conversation around their women empowerment conference that they just did, as well as some other things that they've got planned as well. But there's always got some interesting guests, and sometimes it's just the two of them talking and all along those lines, because we got other shows coming up on this Thursday, including Coco McMillan at 6 o'clock, and she's got a couple of gospel folks that'll be her guests this particular evening and everything, and that'll be after World Politics. But right now, let's get on out of here. I'll catch you right now. Time to get on out.